Whew.
We're live.
All right, greetings. Welcome to Drinkshares Last Call. Today we are going to be talking about writing with, whether it is anxiety, learning disability, any form of mental health issue that you might be experiencing on a regular basis. We're going to be talking a little bit about what it's like for those of us who do have those health impairments and how we use writing to cope with that. And sometimes how being a writer with those specific impairments also causes us difficulty in trying to be writers. Like being a writer with dyslexia might be a very large problem for you. So we're going to go around tonight, do our introductions. Let's see. Let's start. I feel like I can start with Kara a lot. So we're going to start with Joe tonight.
Hello. My name is Joe Trezeva.
I'm doing that because Joe didn't want to go earlier on something else. So, Joe.
Yeah. Author of Lost Generation, a book coming out in the next decade. Soon-ish. Good progress has been happening on it, and so I won't go off on that too long.
All right, Joe, the secret question for tonight is, since we are talking about anxieties and we're trying to embrace what difficulties we have, make them a little bit more socially acceptable, educate people a little bit, the secret question I thought of for tonight was, what character in a book, movie, television, video game, comic book, whatever, had a quirk or flaw or issue, whether maybe you knew of a character that had ADHD or something like that, that was the first one that did something and you're like, oh my god, that's me. And it kind of made you feel a little bit more like embracing of what your difficulties were.
Well, there's a book. I just found out that I had ADD not too long ago, so I haven't been living with it for very long. I've been living with it for about 6 months.
Well, you've been living with it your whole life.
Well, yes. I mean, I've had it my whole life. I just thought
the
that was
knowledge of it.
I thought it was just that was like normal, and this is like the things that I did were just things that everybody else does, and it turned out it wasn't. In the there's a book series called The Beam, which is I think there's like 3 books in the series. There's an investigative reporter that has attention deficit disorder, and I started reading the series before I knew I had ADD, and the things he would do, I was just like, this is just what normal people do. and then it made a lot more sense once I was diagnosed. So yeah, he was I don't remember the character's name. I'd have to look it up, and it was pretty spot on.
All right.
Leaving beans in a pan and letting them fry because you forget to turn off the oven and things like that.
Christine.
All right, I'm Christine Brennicke, author of 7 Shards, which one way or another will come out in 2017 at some point in that year. And so this is just like characters we relate to? Is that question?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a health impairment, but is there like a flaw or a quirk or something that's not average?
Yeah. I pretty much always, like, anytime there's like a spacey chick character, relate to that character. So like River Tam, Luna Lovegood, like those types of characters are always my favorite.
Well, and that's, River Tam did have health impairments. Beyond her psychic ability, she clearly had some kind of traumatic brain injury that allowed her to, like, she had anxiety that would and fear that came from that. So.
Yeah, so she ties in very well. Yeah.
All right. And
got creepy people with blue gloves chasing you down.
2x2 hands of blue.
2x2 hands of blue. Yeah.
And Kara.
Yes. Hi. I'm Kara A.C. Weston, author of She Is the End, which is going out to beta readers in 10 days.
Woo!
I set myself a deadline. I'm going to stick to it.
I'm excited and then I'm like nervous for you.
Oh, I'm super nervous. Oh my gosh.
Don't add to her nervous pool.
Well, it's just like I'm like very excited because it's been a book that like I wanted to read for a long time, and then like I think about like me finishing my book, and then it's like me projecting on Kara.
Well, I remember hearing this one author talk about her friend who she did a podcast with, and how she avoided reading her books for a really long time because she was really scared that they'd be bad, and she wouldn't know what to say. And I totally understand her feeling that way. Like, what if Kara's book is bad? What if it's just straight up just bad? What if it's bad? I don't know. Just tell me. Just tell me it's not my thing. Then that's okay. No big deal. I have a firm belief that every book has an audience somewhere. And if you're not part of that audience, that's okay. No big deal. But anyway, my character, let's see, what characters I relate to? I'm trying to think. When Christine said Luna Lovegood, it definitely related to her. And Hermione, too, but more Luna. I was like, Luna's my kind of gal. Like, yeah, spacey, weird, everybody thinks she's weird. Yeah. Other than that, I can't think of anyone, but if anybody has any ideas and you can shout it out, I'll probably latch onto it and say, yeah, me too.
I'm sure as the night progresses, we'll think of something. All right, and I am Rebecca S. Lieber, the author of Proxy, which is currently funding on Inkshares until September 4th. And the character that I think I've related to best in any show, book, any of that I've seen was the character of Olive in Easy A. Because she didn't necessarily have like a health impairment or anything, but she is so spastic. And I still am so spastic. And whenever she gets really excited, she starts talking really fast, and she's really awkward. Oh, that's totally me. The scene in the Lobster Shack where she's on a date, that's like me every day of my life. So it was really refreshing to see that. So we're going to do a little bit different tonight. We're going to kind of do a roll call as we talk about what we're reading and what we're drinking. And as we are listing what we're reading currently and what libation we are partaking in, we're also going to kind of self-identify with what impairments or issues that we're dealing with, just kind of open the floor. So if you're in the chat with us tonight and you would like to share with us, no pressure, it's totally a safe place, it's comfortable, but if you would kind of like to join the discussion, we could kind of tailor what we're talking about tonight to those who are joining us, because we definitely want to help you guys find ways of coping and managing, but also just reaching out, because it's really nice to just have people who are like-minded and understanding when you're dealing with these issues, because they're very isolating issues. So if you want to share, feel free to do that in the chat with us tonight. We'd really appreciate that. So going in the same order we started with, Joe, what are you reading? What are you drinking? And what are you dealing with?
I'm drinking, I was going to drink water, and then I got nervous because this is a serious episode, so I started drinking Dat Dark Sour, which is a sour beer. I think I've had it on the show before. It was the only beer that we had left in the house because we're trying to eat healthy and get in shape, and I actually didn't want to drink anything today because I was like below like the threshold of things I was supposed to eat today, and I got nervous, so whatever. I broke it. Deal with it. Life goes on. I am reading a book as I'm going through my book and trying to polish it and make sure what's working and what doesn't work. I'm reading a book called Take Off Your Pants, Outline Your Books for Faster, Better Writing, and it's pretty good. If you consider yourself a pantser and you've tried to outline and you've never been very good at it, or you've never really understood it, or felt that the structure was too limiting, check out that book, because it really clearly helps kind of give you a structure that you can kind of validate your story against. Not even just like, okay, like here's like I've got to hit A, B, and C. It's just like here's some general kind of guidelines that if you like you feel good about what you're thinking, if you can answer them, and that is good. I have attention deficit disorder. I figured that out not too long ago, just as I said a little bit earlier, and I just started taking medicine. I've been going to therapy. Both those things have been positive. We'll probably touch on those later in the show. So that's me.
All right. Christine?
All right. I am drinking some pineapple and orange juice with dark rum and lime. And I just picked up The Cursed Child.
Yay, that's what I'm reading.
And yeah, I was going to go to the midnight release, and I got sick that very same day, so I could not go. So I picked that up this weekend, and I'm probably going to start it tonight. So we can talk about it soon. And like my big thing that I deal with is imposter syndrome, which doesn't like really kind of affect me very often. But like especially with doing bigger life achievements or bigger decisions, like that's when it tends to kick in. So when I got crowdfunded, when I reached that goal, like, kind of like the happier and more excited I was, like the more it freaked me out and the more the imposter syndrome flared up and like kind of like put me into like a panic attack almost. And it took a long time to come off of that and to return to like my normal way of functioning. And even the decision to do the show, it affected me for that. Yeah, and it was something I was like, you know what, like, I was really, really nervous to appear on camera. I'm really, really nervous to act as any kind of authority, even when it's my own opinion that I'm being an authority on. So, like, doing the show, I'm kind of actively, like, pushing myself to overcome that.
We're with you, Christine.
Thanks.
And we're happy you're on the show.
Yeah,
Yeah, we like
me
having
too.
you.
Me too.
You have a really good. You've had a really good character arc since we've started this show.
Yeah.
You like begin to talk more and assert yourself more. And it's good.
All right, and Kira.
I am drinking water and eating Tums. Lots of Tums. I have lots of bad heartburn right now.
Oh.
Thanks a lot, fetus. And I am. What am I even reading? I don't think I'm reading anything. I don't think I. No, I haven't started a new book.
Are you on the beta list for Rockets?
I don't know. I want to read it, but
It's on right. I have to get to it because I think he wants it by the end of the month.
Yeah,
and I just I saw the email and I hit like snooze on it because I have like other things I'm trying to get done.
I need to get my book out. I need to get my book out to people. So if I really can get it out to people on the 18th, then maybe I could fit in beta reading his book. Beta reading is really helpful. I would highly recommend it. Side note, because it can help you with your own writing. Because you'll notice things that bug you when other people wrote it that you just gloss over in your own writing. But you realize, wait a second, this actually is annoying. If I'm not giving myself, the benefit of the doubt, or whatever. And what do I deal with? Mostly anxiety issues. I get pretty bad anxiety sometimes. And all of those articles that you might read that are like the unique experiences of women with ADD. That's exactly my life. That's how I experience life. So I'm pretty sure I have ADD, but I have not gone through any process of diagnosis, and I probably won't for a long time because right now I'm in the managing to not let my entire life crash and burn phase, so I have other things that I need to deal with. And I don't know. I know there's a good argument for being proactive. In fact, I work in public health, and it's all about upstream interventions so that downstream you don't experience the same detrimental outcomes. But maybe later. Maybe later. Maybe later.
Do you feel like the pregnancy exacerbates any of the issues that you already deal with, like especially with ADD? Because I know we've all heard of baby brain.
Well, in my first pregnancy, I think yes. I mean, baby brain's kind of a different thing. You just have to cut yourself some slack because, yeah.
It's sucking up all your nutrients.
Yeah. But when I was a teenager and I went to college, I had an eating disorder. And my first pregnancy, that kind of flared up again. Kind of had some, issues with that. And so it was, anxiety and just worry and concern about all that. But I haven't dealt with that in the subsequent pregnancies.
I'm glad you mentioned that too with the eating disorder, because what a lot of people don't understand about eating disorders is it's not so much about, yes, it's a mental thing with your body image, and a lot of girls with eating disorder suffer from, what do they call it, body dysmorphic disorder, but it's about control. It's a lot of girls that develop eating disorders
are in situations
where they feel like everything is out of control. Like one of my former students who had a really bad case of anorexia was in a really, really shitty situation with parents who were not together, were using her as a bargaining chip, it was a bad situation, and that was the one thing she could control, was the food she put in her body and when she chose to eat it and how much she did. So a lot of people don't realize that it's not just about, oh, I want to be skinny, and society tells me it's almost an OCD thing. It's a compulsion.
Yeah, and that's. I'm glad you brought that up because I think we'll probably talk later about ACEs. I was going to bring that up. Adverse childhood experiences. But I have quite a few of those. And yes, my eating disorder started right in the middle of one of the worst ones. Yeah. So yeah, connection there.
Yeah. Well, I am also reading Cursed Child, like Christine said. I am about, let's see, it's 2 parts. I think I just started, looks like I'm a third of the way through part 2. So I'm in it enough to know where it's going, but I have no idea how it's going to end yet. The drink I am partaking of tonight is RT that you can get on, what's the name of the website again?
Oh, you're drinking RT?
Yeah, and I'm drinking it iced tonight, which I really like it cold. Christine was really right about that. So, what was the name of the site again, Christine?
Adagio?
Yes, Adagio Teas. Thank you. And you can actually get the official DLC tea that is inspired by all the flavors that your drinkables love. Created by our created by our very own Christine Brennicky. Our what's like a tea professional? Like a coffee person would be a barista, but what would like a tea person be?
Teologist.
Teologist. There you go. So interesting. So my main issues, I do have some slight learning disorders that I've been able to cope with, and being a person who is now learning about special ed as I'm getting ready to teach that, I do have kind of the same issue my sister had when she was going through nursing school, where it's like, oh, I have that. It's because my sister turned into a hypochondriac when she started nursing school. And so I did have to deal with some of the issues of, okay, I don't literally have everything, but I do know that I have partial dyslexia, which it's not so much that I deal with the inability to read, but it actually exhibits itself when I'm writing more often. A lot of transposition of words that I don't catch until I come back and read things, or sometimes I don't even read them as transposed. I read them as proper, and then it takes another person to read them. Simple things like flipping A's and E's when they follow each other, things like that. Skipping entire words when I'm writing sentences, which are all a lot of fun things when you're writing, because people who pay to read for you get fucking frustrated. Wyatt, frustrated when I mix up pronouns, or when I completely leave out the subject and object of the sentence. So that kind of stuff is very frustrating. I also have recently discovered that the reason I could not do math in high school had nothing to do with my intelligence, but was the byproduct of an issue called, I'm going to mispronounce it, dyscalculia. I think that's how you pronounce it, which is an actual math impairment in the brain, which is why I would see numbers and have panic attacks, because I could not get the numbers to work. I didn't, my brain would literally shut down. When I was 18 years old, starting my first serving job, I remember having a panic attack when I tried to count out change for somebody, because it was the first time I had ever worked at the cash register, Steak and Shake, and I went to hand back the change. And I even knew how much change it was, but to figure out, to count the change, which had to do with numbers, in front of another human being, I shut down, and another server had to come up and do it for me. I was totally embarrassed, because I'm 18, I'm a smart kid, why can I not count change? So that was like a panic moment for me, and I realized that this was something other than just inability to do math. My biggest issue that I deal with constantly on a daily basis, I've been recently medicated for it, is that I have OCD and anxiety. And a lot of people hear OCD and think, oh, germs, cleaning, stuff like that. That is simply one manifestation of OCD. OCD can come in a lot of different forms. It can come in, if you're a nail biter, you have a mild form of OCD. It's an issue where that is your ritual. OCD is all about ritual and things that satisfy your worry. I grew up being a worrier. I thought it was just part of my personality, but it's really having to do with the chemical discrepancies in my brain, like dopamine and serotonin and things like that. I have a imbalance in those. Just like if you have diabetes, you have an imbalance in your blood sugar, it makes you do wonky things. If you have OCD, anxiety, depression, those are all chemical disorders. It's because your chemicals are not balanced. It has nothing to do with you as a person, your personality. So my problem with OCD was I had what my therapist called magical thought processes, and I would get these huge, exaggerated worries in my head. Every day getting up for me was agonizing because I would get up for work, and I had to be out of bed at a certain time. So if I had to be at work at 7:30, or 8:15, and I wanted to be there at 7:30 to make copies or whatever, I had to be out of bed at this time so I could get the dog outside by this time, so I could get in the shower by this time, so I could be brushing my teeth, washing my hair, using my, I had to do it in a certain order, because if I got stuff out of order, then I would get behind. And then I couldn't be drying my hair and picking out my clothes and ironing my clothes and putting on my makeup and all this, and that way I could sit down and eat breakfast. And I'm talking fast because this is how it's like in an OCD person's brain. And if you don't have these certain things done at a certain time, oh, well, then if I'm not leaving the house at 6:30, then I won't be on the road by this time. And what if I have to get gas, or what if something bad happens, or what if I hit a deer and then I'm late? And basically not getting up on time, or something ridiculous like not eating my cereal by 6:32 means that I will get fired from my job. That's how extreme it gets. And it sounds ridiculous, but that's exactly what it is. And so you do these little rituals, and whether they're as simple as having a routine that if you feel like you break, it ruins your whole day, that's not an exaggeration. Or it could be something as severe as pulling out your hair, picking at your skin, the rituals of tapping, counting, germs, cleaning, things like that. Those are all different manifestations. So that's basically your crash course into OCD. So that's a little fun adventure into my brain pan and what I deal with on a daily basis. So like I said, if you guys are willing to share, please do that in the chat. We're all here together. We're all dealing with the same bullshit. So please feel free. This is a safe space. All right, that being said, one of the things that we wanted to do is we did want to educate a little bit tonight. Disclaimer: I shouldn't say we are not professionals, because Kara is a health professional. I am a teacher, so I deal with socio and psychological issues and things like that. And I am going through school to be a special ed teacher, but we are not able to diagnose. We are not professionals in the ability to say that if you have this problem, this is how to fix it. This is all anecdotal. This is all from our own experiences. We are going to use the language that we are familiar with, the terminology that we know. So if we use the word like disorder and it makes you uncomfortable and upset, just chill out. We're just using the language that in our limited experience we know and have. I was telling Christine and Joan Kara earlier that just in special ed in the last couple of years, they've had 4 different words to describe a person's intellectual disability. So stuff changes. Just chill out with us tonight. It's all in good humor and fun.
Be kind. We're stressed a lot as it is.
Yeah. Joe is really stressed out about this. So
his beer's all gone.
So
is that your water?
I put it aside because it was kind of gross.
So bear with us.
I got a little sip.
Understand this is all coming from a good place. We're not trying to put anybody on the spot. We're not trying to call people out. We're not trying to criticize. We're just using whatever terminology and language that we have to explain. So thanks ahead of time.
Yeah, so if or when we mess up, which we probably will, we just apologize in advance.
Yeah.
And
so
our intentions are good.
That's right. So a little bit about like what a learning disorder, ADHD, anxiety, depression, people on the autism spectrum, like all of the things we talked about today, what they are. Most of the time, they are either a chemical or neurological issue in the brain. It has nothing to do with personality most of the time. Personality can be impacted by these things, but for the most part, these are actual medical issues. They can sometimes be corrected through therapy. Sometimes medical intervention has to happen, whether those are surgeries, whether those are taking medicines. I've done both. I've done the therapy, which I preferred to the medicine, but when my insurance changed, I had to leave my therapist behind, and I was kind of forced to go on meds because it kept getting progressively worse. So for whoever prefers those methods, find what works for you. No judgment on that part. Sometimes, especially with learning disabilities and ADHD, they impact what's called executive functioning. And those are a lot of the things that we take for granted as just basic actions of the human brain. Being able to initiate something, being able to control your emotions appropriately for the setting, your memory, whether it's short-term or long-term, your ability to plan, organize, prioritize, your impulse control, things like that. Those are all part of executive functioning, and especially children with ADD and ADHD really have a problem with those things. So a lot of people think, oh, he's just a brat. No, he literally cannot control himself. It's really hard because a lot of people think, oh, I'll just sit the kid down, punish him, consequences, things like that. They'll learn. No, it's like they took a portion out of your brain. It's like, could you do math if you didn't have certain lobes of your brain? Could you remember things without certain lobes of your brain? So think of it that way. It's literally a disparity in their brain. What else am I missing? There was one more thing. Another thing, multiple intelligences. Sometimes you're just better one thing than another. Your brain is wired differently. Men and women have different connections in their brain. So maybe you're an audio person that learns best by listening, learns best by visual, learns best by kinesthetic, where you actually are doing the thing that you learn. Interpersonal and intrapersonal and interpersonal. Maybe you're good with people, maybe you're better on your own. So there's different ways of learning. In the teaching field, we try to differentiate as best as possible. What they are not fake or attention-seeking measures. They are not about kids who just want to be the center of attention or who are bad, okay? It's not something you can get over. It is not something you can grow out of. Most of the time, a learning disorder is something that a person is going to be dealing with for the rest of their life. Same with ADHD and ADD. They are not a brain element of brain damage or a cognitive impairment. They may have limitations on your problem-solving ability, but that's not because your brain is damaged. Okay, that's a whole other thing. They're not indicative of low IQ. So if you have a learning disorder, it doesn't mean that you're necessarily stupid. It's very easy for people to put that label on you because you have trouble learning. And what is learning if not the accumulation of knowledge? So I just wanted to throw those out there because there's so much stigma on those things, and what they are and what they aren't are very blurred. Most of the common learning disorders are dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, things that affect your ability to read, your ability to write, your ability to speak, and what's the other one? Your ability to do math. So that being said, that was our crash course. Going in the same.
But do a research. Remember the episode from last week. Do research.
Exactly.
It's
if
good
you are
to do research.
Should you include characters in your books that have these issues? Yes. Should you pay homage to them respectfully? Also yes. So
can I throw out something just totally random here?
Yeah, sure. Go.
Side note: if you're thinking to yourself, "Ooh, could I create a male detective, a white male detective, who has some sort of obsessive personality thing that makes him allowed to be a jerk to everyone around him, but then he solves all the crimes"? Maybe go in a different direction, because it's been done before.
I was going to say that book already exists.
A million gazillion times. So just, try something new. Just throw it out. Try something.
At least make him a girl. At least. Try something.
Are there any of those out there? I'm trying to think. Any detectives? Female detectives that are allowed to be jerks to everyone around
She's not a detective, but Bones is kind of like that.
Well, yeah. I guess she does have, I don't know, something, maybe.
So good point. I think that was a fair point. Christine,
and she solves crimes.
Yeah.
She's not a detective. But anyway, so go on.
Christine, on that point, do we want to segue into what you have to say? Because we're talking about what not to do in books.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good idea. Okay. So on the last episode, a topic was brought up that we weren't really planning on discussing. And it was in the context, it was rape in stories. And it was in the context of historical accuracy. And we kind of addressed it with that, but I just wanted to say something on a in a broader way about that topic. And I'm just going to read it so that I say exactly what I mean to say. So rape isn't just something that some people do or that they have done. It's also something that many people experience. And it's something that many of your readers have experienced. You know, it's not something that is only in a historical context. It's, you know, in the present day as well. And not only is it an experience, but it's also an experience that lasts like long after the action is done, and it has consequences to the victim/survivors community and their relationships as well. So when you choose to include rape in your stories that you're creating, I just want you to think about, you know, are you focusing on the action only, or are you showing the entire picture where the experience and the after effects are also explored? Because when you don't include, you know, the much larger percentage of that topic and you just focus on the action, you're basically implying that the experience part doesn't matter, that it's not important enough to include. And that's really reinforcing the rapist's narrative, and it's actually contributing to rape culture when you have lots and lots of stories out there where they just mention rape as a thing that was done, and they don't explore it any further than that. So yeah, I just want to say, you know, if you're debating whether or not to include that topic or to even mention it, just think about being balanced with your portrayal and being respectful.
I think it's a really good point.
Amen.
Yeah.
And I'm actually going to bring that back to the topic we were talking about with eating disorders, because once again, when a man chooses to take that action and rape a woman, it usually has nothing to do with sexual attraction. It always comes down to control. It's always about a man trying to control that woman, whether it's because he feels...
Can be a woman.
Or a man.
Male
Sorry,
victim.
that was very hetero of me. I apologize. Or it can be a woman and a woman. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could be a woman and a man. There have been plenty of reported cases in which a woman has drugged and taken advantage of a man. So it's rape is rape, exactly. But it's always about control. It's not about I want you as, you know, I'm sexually attracted to you, you won't give it to me, so I'm going to rape you. It's usually of, why am I not good enough for you? Who are you to say that I'm not good enough for you? Let me show you. Or I want to
or sometimes it's
you.
not even, sometimes it's not even
That's
that
a lot of
flattering.
Power. Yeah, sometimes it's
power.
just,
they can get away with it.
Yeah. That's why we see so much of it on college campuses, where kids get away with it because, I'm somebody of importance on a sports team. What are you going to do? I've got a scholarship. So.
Well, yeah, it's an expression of power and maintaining the power imbalance that exists in a lot of different areas.
Yeah. So I think that was a really important point, and I'm glad you brought it up, Christine. Let's see. Sliding back onto what we were originally talking about. Kind of going in the order that we started with Joe, ending with Kara, what are some of the coping mechanisms that you guys specifically use, just really quickly, so we can actually kind of go into how writing helps you with your issues? So, Joe?
Starting with me?
Yep, starting with you.
Okay. Well, I take a two-pronged approach, because I was saying in the chat that ADD is a combination of behavioral and chemical. So there are parts of I go see a therapist with channels where we work on the behavioral stuff, and my therapist always says you can jump in the hole, because you talk about like when you have ADD, it's like you're doing great and then you like fall in the pit, and you're doing great and you fall in the pit, like everything's good and then you get too much going on and then it's like everything collapses. So it's like up and down and up and down and up and down. And so my therapist says, with the behavioral stuff, which kind of gets me like in a good position, and then the medicine, anybody can jump in the hole at any time. the medicine helps me choose whether I want to jump in the hole or not. And it's pretty accurate, since I just started taking it about 3 weeks ago, and with the combination of everybody's got to choose their own path. I think starting with the behavioral stuff first before going to the medicine was good for me, because it allowed me to have 2 or 3 months, maybe more, of kind of good reinforcement, good habit reinforcement before just taking a pill and not knowing what to do with it. And that's kind of what helped me get to where I am. There's still a lot of the journey's never over. It's always something that you're working with. So I'm continuing to kind of go down the path and try to be, continue to be successful with, being able to execute on things and follow through on things, and not let it hold me back.
Okay, Christine, what coping mechanisms have you been able to have with your imposter syndrome?
So when one thing I do, if I'm getting really bad, it's usually more triggered by a specific success. So luckily I'm not dealing with it constantly. But if it's going really strong, one thing that you can do is actually keep a document, as cheesy as it sounds, where you can kind of put your evidence on there that you weren't just lucky when you achieve something, or people aren't just being nice. So you can put any positive feedback that you've received, especially if you're like me, I kind of filter out the things that sound like, oh, they're just being nice, and put the things that are more specific, where if they were just being nice, they wouldn't be that specific with what they said that was flattering. So I'll keep a list of quotes that people have said. You can put your grades, awards, achievements, hours that you've put into things. Because a lot of times, with my artwork, I get really uncomfortable when I get complimented on that, because I feel that
because you're brilliant at it.
Because I just feel I don't deserve the good job, that I just got lucky that I can do that, but I kind of just dismiss the fact that I've been drawing my entire life. I went to school for art. I've put many, many hours into honing that craft over the course of my lifetime, probably, an incalculable number of hours. And when I get a compliment, I dismiss all that, and I just feel really uncomfortable, because I'm just I had nothing to do with that. It just happened on its own. So, kind of collecting your empirical evidence written down really helps, because you can read it, and that kind of turns your rational side back on, and it kind of turns off that panicky, I don't deserve this, they're just being nice, I was just lucky, it turns that off a little bit.
That reminds me of something that we go over in the therapy. There's a lot of things that, yes but and yes and, where with imposter syndrome, it's I've been doing all this drawing all my life, everything, I've got all these things, but I'm lucky, or something like that. And
and it negates everything else.
Yeah, when you put the but in there, it cuts all that other stuff, all the the big things, the important things off. And when you try to switch your but, every time you say but, you try to switch and. I try to avoid using the word but as much as I can. It slips in a lot because it feels natural, and you've been doing it your entire life, so something you got to practice with. So when you go and you say, you say, I've been practicing all my life, I've been doing all this, and I am also a lucky person, and people like me, and my work is good. You don't have to say. You don't have to
It's not
the
one or
button
the
doesn't
other.
have to be there. Yeah. It's not
that.
It's not or, it's and. And that's super helpful. That's something that
I'm gonna use that tip.
Yes, yeah, it's something we
Yes.
explore a lot with the therapy of try to anytime. There's sometimes when you have to use the word but when you're explicitly needing to describe something. When you're talking about yourself or when you're trying to describe a situation, always, in my experience, always trying to swap out but for and allows you to contextualize the thoughts more positively. And if you can get your brain, shut up, chat.
Uh-oh. What are they saying?
Don't worry about it. It's
This is a
terrible.
safe space, Joe. I don't know why you're upset.
and yeah, so that was my thought.
Wait, I need to recap what's going on in chat.
Oh, they're just making fun of Joe and his.
We're just totally mature.
Just
making
fun.
fun of-
Yeah,
We're not
Gotcha,
making fun
gotcha.
of Joe. We're just making
making
fun of
jokes and they're doing Bob's Burgers jokes and
Oh, jeez.
just being terrible. A lot
You
of butt
can't
jokes
use
in
the word "but" that many times in a sentence and not expect me to make a reference to Tina Belcher.
there. Yeah, so use and instead of but. Butts.
See, we're here to have fun, not just be serious tonight.
We knew we wouldn't be
Yep.
too serious. We are DLC.
Yeah.
And you know what? I want to make a point. I can't remember if it was Ricardo that said this in the chat the other day in Slack. Maybe I'm wrong. So if I'm misquoting, I'm sorry, Ricardo. I'm sorry, whoever said this.
He'll let us know.
Yeah. You have to take this stuff with a sense of humor. If not, it compounds and intensifies so much in your psyche that it just gets to the point that you cannot cope and function with it. So if I didn't make fun of the fact that I have all of these tics and anxieties and issues and problems, I couldn't get through the day. Humor is, in my opinion, the best defense mechanism against yourself, against bullies, against all of the evils of the world that want to come hurt you. I've always joked, that nothing is sacred because I don't look at anything that is so sacred it can't be joked about, which is why Anthony Jeselnik's one of my favorite comedians. But you have to take this stuff with a sense of humor, or else it's going to eat you alive. And that goes across the board for anything, whether it's your writing, whether it's your job, whether it's your education, whether it's the stressors that you have. You need to be able to step back and just laugh. Cool. It was, Ricardo. Thanks. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
What is that Parks and Rec quote where Leslie wants people to tell jokes and Anne isn't funny and she's like, "Oh, Anne, you never had to learn to be funny because
she's so pretty."
Like
Parks and Rec is nothing you can't do.
It's not about. She says you never had to compensate for it.
Yeah.
So humor, we develop humor to deal with the things that we're facing. Maybe. Well, maybe not though. Maybe we develop humor for others.
I'm gonna skip Kara just because we're talking about this, because one of the things I was gonna mention is that I use humor as my ultimate coping mechanism. If anything, it keeps me in check. Making fun of myself, it kind of takes the severity out of it, but it also keeps me humble about it. It's really easy to fall into the victim role when you have these issues of woe is me, or I deserve things because I have these things. We have that problem in special education with what we call learned helplessness. When you treat a person for so long in a certain way that you expect this is what they will rise up to. So if you expect only a kid to be able to do this because he has ADHD, then he will only rise to that point. He will never rise above it, or she. So keeping yourself humble is really important, and remembering that you're human. But yeah, my one of my best coping mechanisms is that. So sorry, Kara, I didn't mean to jump ahead.
That's okay. But you're not going to skip me though, because I'm still going to.
No, go right now. Go right now.
I'm still going to tell you what I do for coping, which is, well, let's see, coping. Everything flew out of my brain. But, oh yeah, I remember. I give myself days. I take sick days from work and from my children. I take 6 days all to myself because I am the most introverted person, I think, in the entire universe. And if I could just get a decent set of hours all by myself, usually that really helps me when I'm struggling.
Some places of
I just need time to myself.
some places of employment have their sick days, they have their personal days, but they also have mental health days, especially when you work in
that
public
would be
service
lovely.
like that.
MDH doesn't have it, and in fact, once I told my boss, I was like, I need a mental health day, and he was like, that's fine, but don't say that in writing because it's not technically a legitimate reason to take a sick day. And I was like, we work at the Department of Health, and we're not allowed to take care of our mental health? What is wrong with this world? What is wrong with... And it's because the whole world's made up of dumb people who are dumb.
Well, and it goes back to the fact that so many people don't consider mental health health.
Dumb. It's so dumb.
We don't have time to list the physical symptoms that manifest from mental health disorders. We don't have time to list just from anxiety and depression the physical symptoms.
I know.
Manifest.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So it's super dumb. And yes, Ricardo, I am an introvert. I'm very introverted. I'm just very outgoing. I'm not shy at all. But those are two different things.
Well, one of the things that Christine and I were talking about, Kara, was since we both have anxiety, but what's funny is the best example of how when you have the broad term of anxiety or the broad term of depression, it's still all of these different categories. Because when we were at WisCon, I was anxious over stuff and you were anxious over stuff, but what we were anxious about, completely different anxieties. And so yours was more of a anxiety. Mine was mine is internal, yours is external. But it's all anxiety.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Yeah, it is really interesting. Super interesting. I always feel the most comfortable in groups or crowds when I have some sort of well-defined role that I'm playing. If I'm just adrift, then it's a lot worse. But let's see, what else? Writing, obviously. I mean, we got to talk about writing as a coping mechanism because that's one of the main things I go to when I'm really stressed out or feeling very
when I'm
anxious.
stressed, I have a hard time writing.
Well, I mean, I don't always get to the actual writing part, but I'll go in my head into the world of my book, and I'll just, imagine scenes, or I'll, put two characters against one another and have them talk about an issue. And for me, and I'm sure for other people too, this is the thing, just taking something that I'm anxious about or feeling really big emotions about, anything I'm really sad or really angry about, distancing myself by putting it in the context of a fictional story and then having characters work through it helps me to deal with it in a way that feels safer for me.
It's like role playing on paper.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody else talk for a minute, maybe about that. I don't know, or something else.
I had a thought about we were talking earlier about humor and self-deprecation. Because it is important. Having humor is important. I'm a pretty sarcastic guy, so definitely humor is in my wheelhouse. There are some things that, especially I think I'm not sure. I only know my illness, so some of the stuff that I try to steer away from now is self-deprecating humor, this happened because I'm a mess up, or this happened because I'm just not so smart, or something like that. When you make jokes like that, what my therapist always says is that the brain can't tell the difference between the things it observes and the stories we tell ourselves. So when you say I'm a mess, there's a lot of times that's what would be in my head, oh, I'm a mess, when I'm I can't get my stuff together, I'm a mess. And when you say that in your head, even though you're joking to yourself or joking to other people, and you're saying it's just I'm a mess, I'm a mess, I'm a mess, I'm a mess, and then it reinforces itself, and then it begins to manifest. So it becomes part of your narrative. So what I try to do with humor and sarcasm and there's lots of ways to make jokes and not trash yourself, because when I started to take the kind of negative connotations out and stop considering myself I'm a screw up, then I kind of started to not be a screw up, you know, and that's something to keep in mind in like with maybe any mental situation. But I can only speak for myself. Keeping in mind what the narrative in your head is really important. What's the story I'm telling myself? You know, if I get a flat tire, you know, am I worrying about, you know, oh, I'm going to be late for work and I'm going to get kind of like with the magical thinking that that Becky was talking about. It's like, what's the story I'm telling myself? Because you don't know what you don't know. So if you're thinking like, oh, I got a flat tire, my boss is going to be mad, I'm going to be late, I'm going to get fired, you get down this like thought path that like is really kind of irrational. When you're dealing with stress and your mind is like kind of looping questions over itself, it's being mindful and being aware that you're telling yourself a story and being able to step away from it and say, okay, I don't know what's going to happen. I can do this, you know, one step at a time, and you know, I'm gonna email my boss right away, and I'm gonna say, hey, you know, I got a flat tire. I'm gonna be late, you know, late for work. I'm gonna be an hour late for work, and then things begin to come together. You know, don't tell yourself a story when you don't know the answer, because all that does is lead you down, you know, a kind of a negative path.
And the problem is if you don't intercept that magical thinking, like you think, okay, it's just kind of obnoxious and annoying that you have to do certain things at a certain time in the morning because you're afraid that if you don't, it'll be late till work and you'll be some kind of consequence for that. But that's what happens is that starts to escalate to a point where you can only wear a certain shirt color on a certain day because the last time you needed to do whatever you needed to do, you wore that shirt color and something good happened, and you actually become superstitious in it. And that's why the term magical thinking is called what it is, because you genuinely start to become irrational in your thinking and believe that if you do this thing will or will not happen. That's why people who have the severest forms of OCD, where they pull out their hair or they're like really mental about germs and stuff like that, it is a self-defense mechanism because they're afraid that they will die, that something bad will happen, that if they don't clean the window 3 times, their loved one will die in a car accident. And it sounds insane to a normal person, but this is their thought process. So you have to do this thing so many times because if you don't, this will happen. Hoarding is another example of like OCD and anxiety, where the reason that they are afraid to let things go is, what if I need this thing? What if someone I love needs this thing? What if I throw this thing away and then I need it for whatever reason? And that's why people collect things, because they're so afraid of what will happen if they don't have it. It's scary. It's really immobilizing. So, did we all get a chance to talk about our coping mechanisms?
Kara made a really good point in the Slack when we were planning this episode, that we're talking about ADD, we're talking about anxiety, we're talking about things, depression and OCD and all these other things, and dyslexia, and like mental health is just like physical health. It's just like working out. You don't have to have a diagnosed problem to take care of yourself mentally. And that's something that when we were originally planning the episode, we were kind of like just talking specifically about these disorders, and then Kara brought up that it's like mental health is everybody is mental health. It's not just something where oh, I don't have to. I'm skinny, so I don't have to work out. If you want to be physically fit, you have to work out. If you want to be mentally fit, you have to deal with mindfulness and mental health. So it's good to focus on that from the standpoint of you don't have to wait until you have a problem to take care of your mind. There's lots of ways.
Well, and one of the things that we mentioned in our notes for the show too is that we all have our we have our coping mechanisms, and we also have our cheats, things that we do like in the moment, not just to help us feel better, but to actually fix the problem at hand for that time period. One of my coping mechanisms when I'm teaching, most people don't ever even notice it, but even though I am extroverted and I love being the center of attention. I love being up in front of people. That's why I act and I teach and I do all the things I do. But one of my high anxiety moments, despite the fact I love being up in front of people, is being up in front of people. It has nothing to do with the fact I'm in front of people. So I don't know exactly what the trigger is, but I never know what to do with my hands. As you can tell, I gesticulate whenever I speak. So whenever I'm teaching, like if I'm doing instruction with notes, I will have my clicker in hand, whether I actually need the clicker or not. I just need something to do with my hand. Squeeze balls. I have so many stress balls. I have stars. I have earth. I have a smiley face. I have emojis. I have like a basket of stress balls that I keep on my desk. Ironically, because not only does it help with anxiety, but it's great for my ADD kids too. So a lot of the similar things that people have with ADD and ADHD, the same triggers and same anxious, nervous, like flailing behaviors where you have to be up out of your desk all the time, that's similar to issues with anxiety. So if you feel like you have a panic attack coming on, grab something and start squeezing it, or find something to do with your hands, distract yourself. Because I don't know how many times I've talked myself down from a panic attack mentally just by having that motion of something to do while I'm continuing to do what I have to do at my job, because you can't just leave the room and be like, hey kids, I need 5 minutes. Like, talk amongst yourselves while I run down to the bathroom and cry. Like, you just do that. So, I don't know how many times that I was in the middle of class and just grabbed something. I was tapping a pencil or played with my hair or whatever, and just that little thing was enough to center me for the next 10, 15 minutes or half an hour, whatever I needed to get to the end of class so I could then go into the bathroom and cry, which we've all been there. So
that's what you're saying with the grabbing the ball and like talking yourself down, I think is important. I think that works for a lot of people. From my experience, I feel like I have to preface this with like I only know what I know. But from my experience, when there's like two parts of like what we're doing, like when we're talking about executive function, there's the animal brain, which is like fight, flight, and freeze. And it's like, this is the part that freaks out. This is like the, oh god, something's happening, I'm getting attacked by a tiger. And this is kind of the place you go, like when you're like super stressed out, or you're having a lot of like ADD problems, or and probably anxiety and all those other ones.
Those are the most primal parts of your brain too.
Yeah, and where you want to be like down here in like the logical, like, okay, I've got this, I can handle this. And a lot of how that happens is when you're oxygenated, you like your brain opens up. It's kind of like a flower, so like it kind of like opens up, and when the oxygen flows, and you slow down, you can think better, you're not in that like I'm getting attacked by a tiger mode. So a lot of the things that I learned with the ADD, like when I feel like, oh my god, I got like all these things going on, I can't focus. There's like Miro's yelling at me, I got to get some work done. I'm like, Miro was sick, and then I like people are emailing me at your work, and like I'm freaking out, and it's like, okay, take some breaths, just stop. Take some breaths, get the breath in, and once you start to oxygenate, you get on like a 1 through 10 scale of like how are you, and you like start getting down into those 4s and 3s and 2s where you feel like, okay, I can function now, I can focus, I can get on one thing, and I think that with the stress ball, it's the same sort of thing. The more you get that thing, it's kind of helping your brain open up and get you out of that anxiety spot, or where it's like you're in panic mode and your brain is just like flashing lights.
Yeah. Another thing that I did a lot when I was in school and I was starting to drift was doodle while I was taking notes. Even if we weren't taking notes, I would just take out, because that was enough to keep me grounded and I could still listen to whatever was being said, and if we were taking notes, I could still do that. That's why I'm actually trying to learn how to sketchnote right now, because it's like a combination of note-taking that I already know how to do, and the application of doodling as well, including pictures and typography and all of the fun stuff that goes into the art aspect. But it actually helps you with retention because it engages more parts of your brain than just writing, which is why you should always handwrite instead of type notes, because it engages more parts of your brain during handwriting than it does when you're typing. That's just
that's like one of the go-to like when you hit a block in your writing, that people always say is either like take a walk or start writing with a pen and pencil if you're on the computer normally.
It's a permanent part of my process now. I cannot sit down and just type it out. I physically can't do it. It's never the same as writing by hand first and then taking it to the computer. Typing does become part of my process in it's like second draft. So my handwriting is first draft. It's basically the
yeah, because like you kind of naturally rewrite.
Yeah, you have to.
it.
And for me specifically, it's the first stage in catching the missed words and the what do you call it? Now I can't even think of the word.
The errors?
The errors, not just spelling and stuff like that, but for me specifically with the dyslexia issues, the words I skipped, the transposition of letters and things like that. And sometimes it still doesn't, because my brain knows what it was supposed to say, and so I read a word that's not, I didn't intend to misspell it. I know how to spell the word bear, but if I wrote the word bear as in like the animal B-E-A-R as B-A-E-R, my brain will read that correctly, and it might take Wyatt on the second time around of reading it to actually catch it. So
I definitely I can't concentrate if I'm not doing something with my hands, drawing or playing with my hair. Yeah, doing something.
when my hair was longer, it was a lot easier.
Yeah. And another thing that I do to cope, or did do, and it just got to the point where I was just on the edge of being like, maybe I need to, I don't know, just manage this a little bit, was drinking, yes. Drinking alcohol. I was at the level of, like, you know, at the most 1 to 2 glasses a night, more than 4 nights a week. And then I was getting to the point where I was like, I don't want to not be able to handle anything without having a glass of wine or 2, you know? So it wasn't quite at the point where I'm, like, getting drunk every night.
That's kind of where I'm at with
like,
coffee. Like,
well, coffee can help you
to have it every day, but
I mean, coffee it's a mild stimulant that's like in the same playing field as speed, right? Or whatever the ADD medications are.
I can say,
yeah,
from my experience, I thought that I know that Becky wants to get into the writing stuff, so I'm just going to do this as fast as I can.
Appreciate that, Joe.
When my ADD was at its worst, before I started getting help for it, I didn't know I had ADD. I thought I was like starting to lose my memory. I thought I was like, okay, I'm losing it. So, because I was just like, my memory was really bad. I was really starting to screw up on things. And I was like, well, maybe it's because I've been drinking caffeine. You know, I'm a programmer. I've been drinking caffeine all my life. Maybe it's time to cut out the caffeine. So I cut caffeine out of my life, and it's a stimulant, and stimulants help with ADD. And that's when my life kind of really fell apart. So like things really got off the wheels. And then my son has ADD, and then I was learning about that, and then all these things kind of started connecting. So if you're a person who is like feeling like, oh, my memory doesn't work, am I losing it? I thought like, okay, I'm getting older. Maybe like that's just the way it is. Maybe I'm just going to start losing things. And if you feel that way, everybody's different, but it's possible that you don't have to. And there's ways that it can get much better. So I encourage everybody to explore that.
One of the side effects that I did not even realize would happen when I started taking medication, because I was so resistant to medication. I went on medication for my anxiety only after I couldn't access my therapist anymore, because I just simply did not want to start over. I had been seeing her for a long period of time, and you don't want to have to go through all of the initial stuff again of explaining your story and all that, and I really trusted her. So when I couldn't get in to see her anymore because of my insurance, I just decided, okay, I'm gonna do medication and see what happens. Improved memory and focus was the first thing I noticed. It wasn't my temper being more mellow or that I was managing my racing mind as much. The first thing I noticed is I remember shit. I remember where I left my keys. I remember where I laid my water bottle at work. I remember where I left that copy that I needed to make copies of that I laid down 20 minutes ago before someone walked in my room and started talking to me. It was a revelation. And it was because my brain was processing so many things such a fast speed, I did not have the ability to take stuff to short-term and then eventually long-term memory. And so one of the really bonus side effects of going on medication was I remember shit, and it's awesome. So, okay, as Joe said, I do want to transition into the writing stuff because we got about half an hour before we want to close out the show. And Kara brought up a really good point with the alcohol issue, because one of the things that often is associated with artistic types, besides having mental health issues, we are very susceptible to addiction. And so it's very easy for people who do not have proper access, or because of stigma do not want to go get access to health. What's the word I'm looking for? Just help. Get help, whether it's therapy, medication, see a doctor, whatever.
We call them interventions.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
but you don't have to call it interventions.
Well,
because sometimes people think of intervention as like just what they did on the TV show called intervention. But like anything that like intervenes in whatever pathway you're going down to help you go a different way.
Well, and I think that's a good thing to call it, because in special ed we would call, before we would do any major thing for a student, we would have an intervention too. We would have what's called RTI. So we would intervene in whatever ways possible to see if those interventions help the student before we actually get them an IEP, which is an individual education plan. So I think that's perfectly good terminology. But it's very easy to fall into that trap of I can't go get help, or no one believes me, or no one will help me, or I'm just broken inside, so I'm not worth getting help, which more than anything I think is probably the biggest problem in the mental health community, is people have such low self-worth that they're like, why bother go get help? I'm not worth it. So it's so easy to say, oh, let's smoke some crack. Let's smoke, let's shoot some heroin. Let's get drunk until we can't see anything or feel feelings anymore. So it's so easy to fall into that trap. So if you are a person experiencing that, please reach out and try to find some intervention that will help you to a healthier path, because no one wants to end up like those people on intervention. But let's see, I got so many notes. Writing in itself has become a coping mechanism for all four of us, and there's not one person in this chat with us who hasn't used writing as a coping mechanism for whether it's a mental health issue or you just had a bad day, whatever's going on in your life. So what has writing done for you guys? Starting with Joe, going to Kara. How has writing helped you manage your issues?
Writing has helped me in the way that I would expect, because I don't really use writing for therapeutic purposes. I did when I started writing, back in school, and writing magically helped me get on a better path on account of joining this, having a job and having a young child, and then entering this Drinkshares contest and having to write a book kind of pushed me over the edge, which is like not the way you want to find out that you have ADD. And with it, I've been able to get down this path of being able to be a better person and be a better husband and be a better father and be a better writer and a more successful professional at my job and a better boss. And so, in a weird way, getting back into writing and finally committing to writing a book has been therapeutic indirectly, and that was kind of good. In my writing process, I kind of write to tell stories that I want to read that I can't find. So I don't necessarily go to it as something where I need to get a personal issue out. Although some of that does come out in characters when you're writing. I think that when you're writing characters, there is a lot of reflection of, I feel this, so then I'm going to throw some of me into it, and so yeah, my writing process kind of made me learn a lot more about myself in an indirect way.
What about you, Christine?
I guess I'm kind of a little bit similar to how it's not the same like using writing as your coping mechanism. For me, like with the imposter syndrome, it actually kept me from even attempting to write for many years. Like, I was always a reader growing up, and I remember at various points like being encouraged to try my hand at writing or take a creative writing class, and I actually felt like I couldn't possibly even attempt that, like that, like I'm not a writer, like I can't even try to be a writer. And so, like, it's kind of the reverse where, like, that put me off writing for many, many years. And then, for whatever reason, like, one day I tried it in my mid-20s, and that kind of helped me, like, break through that barrier I had built for, I don't even know why I built that barrier. And then, I don't know, I guess, like I don't really, for other just life issues in general, I don't really consciously work those out through writing, but they absolutely, like, subconsciously end up, bleeding into the work.
I think it's impossible for it not to.
Yeah. I mean it would be really interesting to, like, get a really scientific explanation for how your mind, like, works with creativity, and how, I don't know. I don't know the terminology to really discuss it, but it would be really cool to learn how that works. But most of us don't fully know.
I saw some people in the chat talking about that they didn't really understand imposter syndrome, and I was doing a lot of things earlier, like chat, looking at the document, and typing. So did you clearly define what imposter syndrome is for the viewers, or not? I can't remember.
Probably not.
Okay.
I guess it tends to show itself in more successful people. They say some sources say it manifests in women more. Others say it's just that women are more inclined to discuss it or admit to it.
Or just question their abilities in general, I think, because one of the things that
like to show the weakness.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that I was, so many of the videos that we were kind of talking about and watching when we were discussing this is that people assume that if somebody has risen to success that normally might not be a success in whatever field you work in, it's through luck, or it's because you're a woman, or it's because you're black, or it's because you're Asian. It's not you.
Or
it's something
charming,
else.
Or someone took pity on you. Or,
it's never your ability and your skill, and that's what you question. Oh, did I get hired because I was the only woman that interviewed? Did I get hired? Whatever.
Yeah, and I don't even know if it's like I've actually never heard anyone talk about it like being for a specific, like, demographic type reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's more just like this irrational feeling of complete inadequacy, and it tends to show itself, when you're having your more successful moments. Like it's people who normally are confident. It's not a lack of confidence. Who are, completely qualified in whatever they're doing. And then when they just reach these benchmarks, it's kind of like when being humble goes wrong, like where it starts to become, debilitating. So
like maybe something that might be like a normal good or even good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, but taken to an extreme.
Exactly. Yeah. And it can, I guess it doesn't have to just happen when you're being successful, but that's a common point where, like, the more successful you are, the more it triggers it. But also it can prevent people from trying things as well. But yeah, it's just feeling like a fraud, and like people are gonna find out that you're a fraud. And it's just a distorted view.
It seems that.
Isn't there a TED Talk on that? Don't we
Yeah,
have a
that's
TED Talk
the
on
one
that?
I was referencing is the one that I
Yeah.
posted up.
Oh,
Either in
yeah.
Slack or whatever. Maybe it was our document. I
It was in
don't remember
Slack.
because it was
Yeah.
one specifically talking about why women experience it, and like I said, it was people projecting their own issues on. Oh, you're a woman. That's why you got lucky. Your timing was good because you're a woman, and so it was projecting those issues on the woman rather than saying you're really talented and you were the best for this job. It was what do you call it? Action. What's it called when they hire you because of your demographic?
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action.
Yeah.
Thank you. And it's like, oh, it's just another example of affirmative
Yeah.
action.
Well,
So-
yeah, or just, a lot of times it's more just luck.
Mhm.
Like, oh, I got lucky, or oh, they just were really nice to me for some reason. Yeah, you just you dismiss your own hard work and your own qualifications.
It seems that imposter syndrome is like the opposite of the, if anybody's heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is, I'm reading
Yeah,
the
I've seen a
Wikipedia 'cause I had
chart
to look it up.
that had the
Yeah.
two.
Was it
Yeah.
on the other side? Because it's
Yeah.
the Dunning-Kruger effect is the cognitive bias in which relatively unskilled individuals suffer from illusory superiority, mistakenly assessing their ability to be much higher than it really is. So you have people that are really skilled and doing really good work and saying like I'm crap, and then you have other
Donald
people
Trump.
that are
You have
doing
Donald Trump.
yeah. You have people that are making absolute crap and saying I'm the greatest thing ever.
I know all the
And
words.
it's like,
I know the best
yes.
words.
I mean, isn't that
I know the
kind of
best.
like, isn't that a trend for like men in general?
I think
a
the
trend,
personality affects a
not
lot
an
of
absolute, but just like
yeah.
or like going into an interview and asking for a salary increase or something.
There's a culture,
like
or like
based on a
how,
certain set of qualifications, and
like
then maybe
in
thinking they
classrooms.
deserve one when they their performance and experience and
Or
education
like-
doesn't reflect that they actually deserve one, but they ask for one and get it anyway because they just think I deserve this,
Yeah. Well, it's definitely, there's a cultural thing there because, like, with, young children in classrooms, the boys will raise their hand and they'll get called on and they don't know the answer. Like, but they want to raise their hand and say something anyway. Where a lot of times the girls will know the answer, but they'll never raise their hand.
Especially in a math
Socialization
class.
has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. That's so. I think there's some overlap there. But I think men are just as capable of experiencing imposter syndrome.
I've experienced a lot of the Dunning-Kruger.
True. Ricardo
Managing.
amends straight white men.
Thank
you, Ricardo. We should have Ricardo.
I get a lot of the Dunning-Kruger from managing developers, and they are generally men. Like we try to find female programmers in Milwaukee. I've tried to pull some onto the team and had a hard time getting them, and so generally all the programmers are men, and they often, the ones that are good are very humble and don't think they're as good as they are, and the ones that are really terrible always think they're the best programmer ever, and it is just the worst because they're just crapping up the code and just making a big old problem. And now Kira wants to talk about something important, so I'm going to yield the floor.
Well, we're talking about writing, right? As a coping mechanism, and like how it relates to mental health and stuff. And so I want to talk a little bit more about ACEs. For one thing, because I work in the same division on the same floor at the Department of Health with the people who run our ACEs program. So that's Adverse Childhood Experiences. And so they did this.
That's like a lot of various types of trauma, right?
Yeah. It's like there's this long list that they use to do this big giant survey a few years ago. It's things like physical abuse, sexual abuse, divorce, like you're experiencing your parents divorcing, someone in the household with alcoholism, someone in the household with substance abuse, stuff like that. my computer's being kind of slow. But the conclusion. So they collected reports of these from a whole bunch of adults, and then evaluated their status as an adult on a whole bunch of different things, and they found that once you get past the first few aces, like if you had 1 or 2 or 3, once you get past that to 4, then there's a really clear correlation between experiencing those and then experiencing a whole bunch of types of, this is my daughter, mental illness, depression, anxiety, alcoholism, asthma is one of them that goes up with a clear correlation.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, incarceration of a household member, mental illness of a household member. So it's not a comprehensive list of like all the horrible things that can happen to a person, but they just did this study and just showed that experiencing these things, and it's mediated by a lot of other things that can make it harder or easier to deal with, like the stability of the your family's economic status, the skills that your parents have in parenting, all sorts of things. But anyway, so I work at the Department of Health, and we talk about these things all the time, and also I experienced quite a few of these growing up. Growing up, it's not, I'm pretty sure I have anxiety. I haven't been evaluated for it or anything. I never have had very good experiences with any therapists or mental health professionals ever, really. But I definitely writing, I think, is one way that I process all of that, like I was saying before, through the safety of fiction. But it's not like, I want to clarify, my book is not a thinly veiled, like, life story, or, like, none of my characters just represent me, and what the things that they go through. It kind of is, though. It's a way to process how I view the world, and, a way to handle traumatic things, show characters overcoming tragic things, because that's what I need. And in comparison to like my husband, who I don't think he's ever experienced anything traumatic in his entire life, at least not anything on this list. And he loves stories that are tragedies and things that drag those emotions out of him. It's like cathartic for him somehow to write and also view those kinds of stories. So like different people need different things based on their experiences and personalities, and it's good to put multiple types of stories out in the world. And also, if you're interested in the topic, you should do research on ACEs.
Well, banking off of what Kara said, I would like to also clarify, Max is a thinly veiled attempt to work through my issues that I had growing up. And a lot of the anger issues I grew up with, mostly stemming from the fact that I had these anxieties and no one could possibly understand what I was going through. Like, no matter how I articulated it or explained it or showed it, it was all stemming from the fact that I was losing my freaking mind and nobody understood why. Everyone, like, the one thing I heard growing up more than anything else that pissed me off was relax, calm down, think about it. Like all of these things of you're worrying, you're being irrational. Like, I know I am, but I can't fix it. I don't know. Like, didn't know how to express to people. Yeah, I know this is irrational. Help me with it. Like, I'm screaming for help, people. And so a lot of the anger issues and sarcasm and humor and self-deprecating issues that Max has are all things that I had growing up, and I somewhat grew out of them. At least I know time and place to use them now. But Max never did. Like, Max never had the opportunity that I had, so she kind of got stuck in that rut of, well, no one cares about me anyway, so what the fuck, I'm worthless. So the opposite of Kara in that. But a lot of the issues that that Max has are things that I've either seen in other people dealing with trauma or things that I've dealt with myself. Now, you know, we all have our own experiences, and this isn't a competition. So my trauma is different than Kara's trauma is different than Joe's trauma is different than Christine's trauma is different than everyone in the chat's trauma. But trauma is trauma, however we experience it, and it's all justifiable. It's all valid. So whatever experience you have, just because it wasn't, you know, your parents weren't putting you in a cage and beating you and locking you in the closet under the stairs like Harry Potter, doesn't mean you didn't have traumatic events when you were vulnerable as a child.
Poor Harry Potter.
Yeah. So don't ever think, well, my parents loved me. My parents took me on vacations. I never starved. I was never homeless. Like, you can still have events in your life. A death at just the right time in your life of somebody that was close to you, that causes trauma. A car accident causes trauma. You know, your brain is squishy and pliable and vulnerable, and you never know what adverse reaction you're going to have to an experience, good or bad. So trauma is trauma. It's all valid, no matter how physical, mental, or, you know, intimidating it is. So I thought that was important to mention.
Yeah, and also I guess I don't want to give the impression that the only valid thing to write about is traumatic stuff either, because, you know, you can put whatever you put out into the world what your heart tells you to put into the world with your writing. You know, it doesn't just have to be a reflection on a traumatic experience. And also, I read this one article once that was about how to break into the world of, I don't know, essay writing or something, or like how to get published. And it was like, just one of the pieces of advice was just write about the most traumatic thing that's ever happened to you. And I was like, that's such a like brash sort of. well, no, it's like monetize your pain. Like, it just seems like, I mean, you don't have to monetize any of your pain if you don't want to monetize your pain. You know, like, you don't have to mind the darkest depths of your mind, of your psyche, in order to write a really good book. You know, write about what you want to write. Just write about happy fairies the whole time if you want. You know.
Say happy fairies or berries?
Fairies.
Okay.
Berries.
You can write about happy fairies.
Well, I thought maybe, like, you know, what was it? Strawberry shortcake? That was all berry related, right?
Oh gosh, that's going way back in my memory.
80s throwback right there. Better watch him to start bringing some Rainbow Bright references, too.
Remember Pound Puppies?
Oh, do you remember the little, like, they looked like little monkeys. They were, but they had people faces.
Yeah.
They basically looked like...
Were they connected to
Wait,
Care
what?
Bears?
I don't think so.
No,
Monkeys
it was
with
just like a
people-
monkey. It was a monkey with like a
Munchies?
plastic face.
It was like Munchies or something like that. Munchies or something like that. I had
That
one.
sounds creepy.
Yeah. No, you know, like, let's be fair, that there was nothing...
Oh god, I found them and they are creepy.
There was no
They
creepier
look
toy
so
in the
80s.
80s than a Cabbage Patch Kid. They're just terrifying. So,
Really?
okay.
Oh,
Hey, Carol.
oh god, I hit a
No,
YouTube
these
link in
aren't-
this commercial.
They're just,
Monchichi commercial over here. I gotta turn
they're
it
just
off.
people.
You should link that.
Yeah,
Do you want to go snuggle with Daddy?
it doesn't let me put links in the chat. I'll have to
Bummer.
put it- I'm gonna make a note on Zencaster to put in the notes.
Kara, did you talk about the Lars thing while I was
Oh no, I didn't.
Okay.
No, but it's just a movie that I highly recommend.
No, it's a great movie.
It's really good.
And it's
Yeah.
exactly what we're talking about tonight.
Because I mean, it's not a movie about a writer. So in that sense, but I mean, it was written by somebody, and it's this guy, Ryan Gosling, and so he clearly has a lot of issues that he's dealing with. And things are getting worse for him, and you kind of find out that it's basically all about, well, not all about, but, you know, the foundation of it is that his mother died in childbirth when he was born, and he's never been shown how to process that loss of her, like, never knowing her, and the people in his life, like his dad, had trauma from that and never, like, helped him to process it himself as his child, and his brother didn't help, and so So he orders a sex doll off the internet and just, like, to everyone around him, acts and treats her like she's a living, speaking, breathing human being, and everybody just goes along with it. And this is kind of a spoiler alert. I'm sorry. Just go away now if you don't want a spoiler alert, okay? Or for Lars and the real girl. Okay, I'm assuming that you've gone if you don't want spoilers.
It's been out several years. They had their time.
It's basically about him reliving, re-experiencing. Well, and he was a baby, so it's not like he even experienced it for the first time. But processing the trauma of losing his mother, but doing it in a new environment where he actually has emotional support and he's able to get through it and survive it and come out in the end healed, from it. Not completely, but he's able to, make progress that he wasn't able to make before because he re-experiences the trauma. And I think that's a really interesting concept for what narrative stories can do for us. I've definitely found there are books and movies out there that I've experienced them, and experiencing them helps me face and deal with stuff that I've experienced in a safe context and see people come out of it in the end okay. And, like, I feel better myself because I've read those books or seen those movies or watched those characters in TV shows. So, I think stories are powerful, and I want to put something powerful out into the world myself, too, because it can help people.
You know what story I recently experienced and helped me feel powerful was the new Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah.
That movie made me feel like I walked out of that like feeling like a boss. I was so excited watching that movie.
It was really good.
It was. So I know there's been so much hate for that movie, and I just screw people that are haters. Yeah. Chicks can't fight ghosts. Chicks can't do anything. No, I loved that movie.
There's a lot of haters. They're just the good people outweigh the haters.
YouTube comment that they read in the movie?
Yeah.
ain't no bitches gonna bust no ghost.
I'm sure those were actual comments too.
It probably was. MRAs usually aren't that funny.
All right. It's about 9:32, so we've come to the part in our show where we like to express our drunk opinions. So I think Christine and Joe were drinking tonight, so I don't know if anybody's drunk, but I'm sure we have a lot of opinions tonight after such a riveting conversation. So,
I got my opinion out of the way early.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, good opinion too.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I want to like I don't know, meme you or something. It's like queen, put a crown in your head.
Joe, do you have any just shy of 3-beer ideas to share with us tonight?
Well, I had like
one beer idea.
Like a 1/16 of a beer. The rest of it sitting there, it was kind of gross. So, not to say the beer itself is gross, but the sour beer in it. It just wasn't. It's a good beer. It wasn't a beer for today.
Is it skunky? But like, if it's sour, I would imagine it's skunky. No,
it's not skunky. It's just a sour beer, and it's good when you're in the mood for that. And it was the only one I had, so I pulled it because I was feeling a little nervous about the episode, and then I just didn't really. Once the episode started going, I didn't feel nervous, and I didn't really want to drink it because it was kind of like not jiving with me. Mm-hmm. So I passed on that.
I put a note in here under drunk opinions that said ask Joe about continuity, and I cannot remember what the hell that was a reference to. Do you remember what that was a reference to?
No.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I do. Are you talking about the unreliable narrator?
Maybe.
The global unreliable narrator?
Maybe.
Where I said because people get really fussy about continuity and consistency and they're in this book. The character said something this, but they'd never behave that way, and it was different from this in the movie, and this comic book was not like the movie, and all these different things. And Douglas Adams said it best when he said that when people talk about Hitchhiker's Guide and they talk about the books and the play or the radio play and the movies and say, okay, which one's true, which one's canon, and his answer is all of them are. Yeah, all of them. They're all the true story. They're all the true telling. And the point I made in planning was, if I write a series of books, I may choose to get things wrong intentionally, um, because just because the narrator is telling you the story doesn't mean they're still filtering it through their eyes, which means that they're going to be telling it you from their perspective, and they could be telling you things wrong, or they could be telling things the way they perceive them to be
They
different
could
from
be
the narrator.
lying to you.
Yeah, the narrator in book 2. So you might be reading something in book 1 and be like, okay, this is canon, and then somebody else is like, no, it happened this way. Like, just because like the wizard like has the swirling fire wave, and then another guy's like, no, man, that was water. And it's like, no, those rules don't match up. And it's like, well, there's two different people telling the stories. You weren't there. You're reading it out of the book. You weren't there to witness it with your own eyes. So you're just going to have to take the narrator at face value. And whichever one is right is up to you to decide.
That's beautiful, Joe. And you didn't even have 3 beers, and that came out of you.
Yeah, I got it.
I have
I'm not drunk.
You are
a
a
drunk
true
question. Oh, sorry.
No, it's fine. I was going to say, Joe is a
say?
true bodhisattva. He is just God among men.
Wow.
Oh, no.
So philosophical.
No.
Sorry, Christy, what were you going to say?
I have a drunk question for Joe. Is
Okay.
it cold where you live?
We just got a new roof, which vents better, and the attic is where I am is cold, and
Wow.
so I didn't take a shower, so I put a hat on.
I didn't even
over my
notice
hair.
that he was wearing a hat and a
Joe wears a
sweater.
hat all the time. Where have you guys
I'm
been?
like
No, he
dripping
doesn't.
in sweat, and I'm like looking at him.
I would
What the
bet
hell's going on?
out of our 11 episodes, Joe's wearing a hat in at least 5 of them.
That's
I would
true.
bet.
Yeah, it's more the winter coat that I'm questioning.
Oh,
The puffy sweater and the hat. I didn't even notice. So
It's very
props to
comfortable.
you.
I was thinking about wearing a bathrobe,
For
and I was like,
noticing.
wait a minute, these are on the internet forever. So like, I could just be like rolling up in a bathrobe, being like, hey guys,
yeah,
let's
of
talk
all the
about
things
like,
we have said and done on the show, it's the bathrobe forever that you're worried about.
Well, it's just like.
I think we should
I don't
do
know.
more
It just seemed like
costuming.
I should probably
I
wear
mean-
like normal.
What are we going to do
clothes.
for Halloween? Halloween's coming up soon.
Like, I was
True.
really wanting to do a
Cosplay.
Jillian Holtzman, like, figuring out how to do her hair and, like, getting some glasses.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
want her glasses.
Like,
We could all dress as her.
We could all do our own interpretation of Walt.
even Joe.
Yes.
That's great. So my unsolicited advice tonight is you all need therapy. All of you. And I say
Well,
that
yeah.
coming from a place of a person who went to therapy, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So for those of you who do experience a disorder and some kind of impairment, something that is limiting you, adversely affecting you in some way, whether it's your health, it's your learning, it's your writing, whatever, your job, don't be afraid to reach out and go to therapy, even if it's just an initial, like, I want to go talk to a doctor to see if I might have something. Even if you don't even think you have something, but you just need someone to talk to. Therapy was the best thing I ever did. It took me a long time to get to the point where I could talk myself into doing it because there is a stigma to it. But everything got better for me after I went to therapy. My relationship with my husband improved. My relationship with my parents was saved. I was so angry at them for so many things that happened to me as a kid, whether it was justified or not. But I have such an exceptional relationship with my parents that would not have been possible if I had not gone through and worked through my anger issues and my issues with my sister, who we are closer now than we have ever been. And this is a kid who didn't want a baby sister. Like, when she found out she was going to get a baby sister because I'm 6 years older than her, I cried. So just take that initial step, even if you only go for 1 or 2, even if you don't feel like you have anything that's worthy of some therapy, everybody can benefit from it. It is a mental health advantage. So go talk to somebody. Look into talking to a therapist, even if it's going once a month. Maybe, you don't have to go all the time. So do it. You will benefit from it. I promise. Cross my heart. So with that, anything else that we would like to share? I feel like this was a really productive episode. I hope you guys benefited from it.
The one thing I want to say, I do the usual wrap up where I say, if you aren't subscribing already, which you probably are, please subscribe to our channel.
And like it.
Yes, like the videos, comment if you'd like. Follow our Facebook where we have neat postings. Tweet at us, and if you really want us to put on some really great shows, tell a friend about us. Say like, hey, I got this great place that I go every other Monday where I hang out with a bunch of friends and they talk about really good things and talk at us, and bring them along for the ride, because as our audience grows, then we can put on a better show. Please do that.
And also, you can hang out with other Inkshares authors.
Yep.
In the chat.
Yes, it's full of Inkshares
place
authors.
to come hang
Especially if you have a friend that is kind of interested in writing and isn't in the Inkshares system yet, or not interested in crowdfunding, but just wants to meet other writers, this is a great place to do it. Everybody's hanging out, having a good time. And the final thing, I just want to add a little bonus to it, is if you feel like you have, and this maybe everybody else can put in their 2 cents if they want this. If you feel like you have ADD or ADHD and you need somebody to talk to about it, and you're not ready to explore that with professionals, you can tweet at me at Joe Treziva, which you see right down here in the bottom if my thing is showing.
It is.
And you can tweet at me, ask me any questions, and I will be happy to share the knowledge, however limited, that I have.
I'm sure that goes for anybody, any of the issues we talked about tonight.
And I've learned a lot from you, Joe, as you've been going through everything and learning new things, which has been really cool that you're so forthcoming with your experience.
And that you have such a positive attitude about it. I know a lot of people who would be in your position when you have a severe impairment like that could negatively impact your life in a lot of ways. It can negatively impact your job, your relationship, your family, and you're always just so positive about it. You're always just like, it's a thing. It happens. It doesn't define me.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome.
That's an important thing to do. Is it doesn't define you. It's how you react to it that defines you, and it did affect my job. It affected my job. It affected my life, and now that I'm finding ways to give myself good habits, and I found a medication that works well, and there's so many positive things that can come out of it. And in the beginning, I said that I was going to be very transparent about it, and I was going to talk to anybody that wanted to talk to about it, and it wasn't going to be something that I was going to hide about myself. And I think through that, I've already started to help people who are curious about it or just want to explore it, or think there might be something. And even if people say like, "Oh, I'm having some issues," and it turns out not to be ADD or whatever the situation is, just having that dialogue, being available to have that dialogue, is, I think, helpful for people. And I'm available at any time to talk to people. Just send me a message.
I think specifically mentioning with meds too, like I mentioned that I was so leery about going on medication because I saw how it impacted my mom and my sister when they went on depression meds. If you're willing to go on medication and you go to your doctor and say, hey, I'm really depressed, I'm really anxious, I think I have ADHD, whatever, and you want to try and find a medication that works for you, make sure you tell your doctor what you don't want. Like, if you know that there's a medication that will cause you to have a sleep disorder or will cause you to be irritable or whatever, you have options. There is a plethora of medications available to you. The one I am on is actually a generic. It's called citalopram. I think the regular one is called Celexa or something like that. It's only like 20 milligrams. You don't have to go on like super high Xanax and what are all the other ones? Like basically the stuff people get addicted to. So talk to your doctor and say, hey, this is my issue. This is what I don't want. And you can work with your doctor. You can try different meds until you find something that works for you. You don't have to just say, hey, I need this. And your doctor goes, okay, I'm writing prescriptions for Xanax, so here you go. So make sure you have that discussion with your doctor. It's really important. Otherwise, you can end up with some bad meds.
There's a chart the doctor came out with and showed me, and it was like all the ADD drugs, and there's like 20 of them.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of pick the one that works for you. Like, Muriel was taking one and it wasn't working great, so I was like, well, that's not really for me. I wanted one that could last all day and And then, because I didn't want to just be like focused at work, I also wanted to be like good at home, being able to work with Miro and not be distracted and be able to like cook dinner and do things like that. And I ended up with a medicine that's called Vyvanse. I think that's how they pronounce it. And I'm doing the lowest dose. It's just 10 milligrams, and it's really helpful for me to just kind of like keep it together.
Yeah. So, well, anyone that joined us tonight and shared their experiences or their issues in the chat, we really appreciate it. We know it's not an easy thing to do. It's very easy to be stigmatized or criticized for those issues. So thanks for being brave and sharing those with us. We really appreciate it. Our next episode is August 22nd, and it is the theme of, Christine?
Finding your audience.
So what will we be
that'll
doing in that show?
Yeah, like the marketing side of things.
And if I haven't sent my book out to my beta readers, then it's the shame on you.
Well, I will
all
probably
see.
be losing my mind by that point, because that'll be our first full day of school that day.
Oh boy. Yeah, I think I'm probably gonna run that one, so that should help out.
Yeah, so that'll be a fun show. But yeah, if I'm losing my mind, it has nothing to do with any of the stuff we talked about tonight. It's because I'm back to teaching. So,
Yeah.
which is its own mental health impairment.
In a
itself.
whole new role, so that's
Yeah, and a whole new role, completely different, because I'm used to having 34 kids in one classroom, and I'm teaching them about history or government or current events or geography or whatever. And now I'm going to be an inclusion teacher in someone else's classroom, or I'm going to be direct instruction with like 3 kids. So special ed is going to be a brand new adventure for this girl right here. So join me on the crazy train on the 22nd, next episode. So. Okay, with that, we appreciate you joining us tonight and sharing everything you did, and we'll see you on the 22nd. Until then, may your drinks be shared.
May your drinks
May
be
your
shared.
drinks be
Drinks we share. Good night, everyone.
Good night.